We're back in Troy, Ohio, in the Miami River, and it's time for Formula One action to wrap it up. As you see, the racers getting a little workout for the crowd.
A little fun on the part of Spiny Bedsworth there, doing some 360s.
Let's check the standings after Formula One. Super D Dennis Miller with a second place and a first place for 38 points. Kevin Spiny Bedsworth 32. Guillermo Novillo with a steady finish for 30 points. In fourth place, Bob went with 25. What the standings don't show is Chris Barzinski, who was the winner of the first race, had a problem in the second race.
And you watch that craft go over, and unfortunately, boing, there goes the prop. That was the end of that hovercraft for the day.
So Chris Barzinski, who is not in a factory-built craft, he is a home build, and we'll see what happens as we get Dennis Miller taking the early lead as we're underway in this Formula One race. And these, Michael, are some pretty powerful craft.
This is the unlimited class, Dave. Unlimited everything. It's home built versus the factory machines. We can see anything goes here.
And we've got some problems early for Guillermo Novillo in the back, and I believe Bob Wint is in a little bit of trouble also. He recognized his craft from earlier, so we're off to kind of a sloppy start here mechanically. Nobody hurt. Everyone appears to be all right. But Bob Wint, and there's Novillo just stuck there right now in the Miami River as Wint appears to get it going again, but Novillo's in trouble, and he's had a pretty eventful couple of races here.
There goes Chris Barzinski getting back into it. You can see the disadvantage of those large prop machines with the single skirts, how wide they swing out on those turns. And speaking of those large props, that's one of the things in this unlimited class. We're seeing Chris run a 50-inch prop here versus about a 31-inch prop on some of these factory machines.
And here's a sight we're used to seeing. Super D, Dennis Miller out in front and driving very smoothly around those buoys here on the Miami River in Troy, where an outstanding crowd has come out as part of that city's Strawberry Festival also to be here to see the hovercraft pilots.
Dave, let me catch up on what happened now to Novillo. He had trouble with that pull cord at the very beginning of the race. He had what we just saw a few minutes ago. His engine died. He had to get it cranked again. He's been wrapping that starter cord by hand and yanking it, and he's back in the race now.
All right, that's Kevin Spiny Bedsworth there. Someday we have to differentiate between he and Guillermo because their craft do look a lot alike, and they're both very aggressive racers. But that is Dennis Miller, and we saw Chris Barzinski come up on that transition where he had an accident before. I'm sure he's got to be thinking about that.
Nice little airborne jump there as they come up, and you can see this is once again the larger craft. These are unlimited horsepower, 500 cc's and up, so these things are really moving here.
And another major difference between the two craft, as you can see, is Barzinski's moving a little bit closer now, trying not to get caught behind, and that looks like Guillermo Novillo to me. The flapping skirts, the everything goes attitude that he has on the race. A big difference in the craft, Michael, between Barzinski and Miller, the skirts.
We can also see the front of these craft with another fan up front, another engine up front. That's providing the lift on these home-built craft. You just see 3 of them going by right there.
Some of the racers we should mention also in this race. Bob Wint is in this. Craig Throssell, Bill Martin, Terry Chapman, Ron Molina, and Alvin Barber completing the field here in this Formula One race in Troy, Ohio. On Hoverworld. Super D, Dennis Miller, with that Super D tattooed right on the front of his Scat hovercraft.
Looks like he's running a little wide on some of these turns. That was a nice tight run right there, coming up on the shore, and right on his tail, there's Chris Barzinski again. He looks determined. He's got a smile on his face. I'm catching Super D.
Well, I tell you what, if Barzinski gets that monster machine out in front and makes Dennis Miller eat air, it's going to be very hard for Dennis to pass him.
Absolutely. With that huge engine and that 50-inch prop really blowing some serious thrust behind him, it's going to make for some big problems for Dennis.
You can see Barzinski making a pretty strong move on the straightaway here also to get ready for another water-to-land transition. Barzinski racing very aggressively with that big machine.
He does. He throws that thing around nicely.
You can see a little bit slow when he first hits the land, but as soon as he gets on it, he seems to be making up a little bit of ground again on Miller. As you can see them both in your picture. And Super D having a little bit of trouble there. Barzinski also goes a little bit too wide, and he missed an opportunity there.
Here we go. We're back in the water again now, heading for that first set of turns.
And Dennis gets it a little bit wide there. Barzinski much tighter. He might have an opportunity here to make a move for first place. Super D still got him by a little bit, but I tell you what, that kind of racing is not going to win him this heat.
Well, here's a straightaway, and here's where speed really counts. And now look how wide Dennis is.
Barzinski has him.
Oh, boy.
Barzinski passed him. Super D just, I have to be honest, a little bit sloppy there. Barzinski racing very determined, has taken over the lead as they go through the buoys. And remember, you can't go over him. You got to go around him. And now Super D with a tight turn, but it's Barzinski, and now he definitely has the advantage with that big prop behind him.
Absolutely. Now you can see the blast, the water, the spray coming out from behind them. Now Dennis is running right into that every time he crosses them. Here we go back. Nice transition back into the water, and look at the acceleration. He's really going now. And we're looking at 60 miles per hour or so plus on these straightaways with these big machines.
These are the 500cc or larger. Pretty much it's like watching an unlimited heavyweight wrestling match in the Olympics. These are the big boys, the sumo wrestlers of hovercrafting, if you will, as they hit from the water to land transition again. Barzinski and Miller. We now have Guillermo moved up to third place, doing a fine job fighting it out with Kevin Spiny Bedsworth here, and those two seem to be locked.
It keeps surprising me, though. I keep seeing Dennis swinging wide on these turns, and it's not characteristic of the way this man races.
I think he's just racing conservatively. But again, let's face it, he's in a fine spot to win the national championship. You come out of the three major categories with 2 national titles, and you've got quite a bit to be proud of. An appreciative crowd on hand here in Troy, Ohio, the Miami River, side of the national championships of hovercrafting.
A nice day, nice flat water, and Barzinski really moving on those straightaways.
Moving it on the air. Nothing underneath those hovercrafts but air. Good tight turns there by, and again, you see Miller a little bit wider, just a little bit more conservatively, I guess, although it probably didn't feel too good physically to eat air, that much power. Still, finishing second will be fine for him as Barzinski gets ready for that transition that cost him yesterday.
Here's a good opportunity, Dave, as we see these craft come around. You can see the segmented skirt on Dennis's craft there with the separate little means of channeling the air underneath the hovercraft. You look at the yellow skirt around Chris's craft in the lead. Now, it's a single-piece skirt directing all the air underneath his craft. If that gets ripped, if that gets torn, he loses that air bubble underneath his craft. So that's one of the risks some of these home builders risk with their craft.
Yeah, again, there's a big difference between the home build and the factory build, and you can just see that the major differences here are obvious to the naked eye, as there's the green flag. Still a little bit of time left in this 7-lap race, the final race in the Formula One for this season, and Super D Dennis Miller in second place, trailing Chris Barzinski, and Super D on his way apparently to the Formula One National Championship.
Moving back into the water now, headed into another set of turns.
And both getting a little bit wide there. And you've got to be a little bit tired also in this point of the race. And again, because you're doing all of the work, you're doing all the body English, and it's going to be a little bit tiring for you. They've got pretty much a two-man battle going on here. Guillermo Novilo is in third place. We've got Kevin Spiny Bedsworth holding down fourth. And fifth place belongs right now to Terry Chapman, who had problems in the first race and did not finish, but has come back and raced well since then.
And we've got some spectators up here on the bridge getting a nice view of the action down below.
I think we're going to rename that the Crash Molina Memorial Bridge. They haven't gotten that through the City Fathers just yet, but it's Chris Barzinski in front of Super D Dennis Miller. And it's Barzinski taking the checkered flag. A close race, and he's happy. He wins 2 of the 3 races here in Troy, Ohio. Super D with a little congratulatory gesture. But it's Dennis Miller who's going to reign as the national champion as Barzinski wins. And I believe we have Guillermo Novilo finishing third, and he's had an afternoon he'll talk about for quite some time. And Kevin Spiny Bedsworth grabbed the 4th spot. Finishing 5th was Terry Chapman, grabbing the 6th spot, Craig Throttleman Throssell. And now let's take a look at what happened overall in the meet. It's going to be a victory for Dennis Miller as he rounds out the year in hovercrafting in style, winning this final meet and taking the national championship. A 10-point victory over Guillermo Novilo, who's certainly an exciting racer and an eventful one to watch. Kevin Spiny Bedsworth and Novilo tying, and Chris Barzinski with 2 wins and a nothing. Interesting to see what would have happened if he'd been able to finish that second race.
So what all this means in the national standings, number 1, of course, Dennis Miller with 466 points. In second place, Kevin Bedsworth with 444, Guillermo Novilo with 408, and Ron Molina in 4th with 308. We'll be back after this.